The old creaky house stood at the end of Willow Creek Lane. It had been vacant for years, its windows dark and lifeless. Locals whispered of strange occurrences within its walls, of eerie sounds and unexplained shadows. But it was only a matter of time before the house claimed its first victim. Sarah, a young and curious journalist, was drawn to the house. She had heard the rumors and wanted to uncover the truth behind the haunting. Armed with a flashlight and a notebook, she ventured into the house one dark and stormy night. The house was colder than she had imagined, and the air was thick with an unsettling stillness. As she explored the dusty rooms, she felt a sense of unease creeping over her. Suddenly she heard a noise from upstairs. Her heart pounded in her chest as she crept up the creaking staircase. The hallway was pitch black, and she could barely see her hand in front of her face. She reached for the light switch, but it didn't work. As she turned to leave, she felt a cold breath on the back of her neck. When she turned around, there was nothing there. But she knew she wasn't alone. A shadow moved at the edge of her vision. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then she felt a sharp pain in her chest. The next morning, Sarah's body was found in the house. The police were baffled. There were no signs of forced entry, and the only clue was a strange symbol carved into her chest. The symbol was unknown to anyone in the town. As more bodies began to turn up, all bearing the same symbol, fear gripped the town. The police were no closer to catching the killer, and the residents of Willow Creek Lane were living in terror. They called him the Midnight Man, and they believed he was a supernatural being. The night grew longer, and the shadows stretched. With each new victim, the fear in the town intensified. No one felt safe anymore, even in their homes. Children were afraid to go outside to play, and adults slept with bright lights on, terrified of the darkness surrounding them. The investigators began to connect the crimes. All the victims were alone, living in isolated homes. They also found that all of them had received mysterious phone calls shortly before their deaths. The calls always came late at night, and the voice of the caller was whispering and frightening. A young investigator named Daniel decided to delve deeper into the case. He began studying the history of the old house at the end of the street, where the crimes had started. He discovered that the house had a dark history, having been the scene of other murders in the distant past. On a stormy night, Daniel decided to visit the old house. With a flashlight and a bit of courage, he entered. The place was dark and cold, and the furniture was covered in dust. As he wandered through the house, he heard a faint sound coming from the basement. He looked down and saw a faint light moving. Daniel cautiously descended into the basement. As he approached the source of the light, he saw a tall, thin man dressed in a black cloak. The man was standing in front of a table covered with old books and mysterious symbols. Before Daniel could get any closer, the light went out and the man disappeared. Daniel rushed out of the house, his heart pounding. He had seen the killer, but who was he? And what were his motives? Was the man he saw just a hallucination, or was it real?